we are all fans inside the NBA, have been for decades at this point.
Just a great show. It has never been able to be.
Nope. Nobody can duplicate it. Nobody can find a way to do it. As big as ESPN has been all these years, the leader and all that, they can't really lock down the NBA shows. Their pre and post games, they can't figure it out. You have other networks that have done it. NBA on NBC was a big deal growing up. You know, I mean, they got the greatest theme song, the whole nine. It was during the era of Jordan and all that, so that was an epic time. But inside the NBA has really had it on lock.
My favorite is the John Tesh coming up with the NBA on NBC.
That's a great story.
And him at a party or something came up with it in his head, called his answer machine, and left a message so he wouldn't forget.
Yep.
And I used to do this when I was a writer and come up with stuff. I'd wake up, have a notepad because I'd have come up with these ideas.
In the middle of the night, and I would wake up, write it down because you could forget them. You know that? Without a doubt. As a beat maker myself, produce some things out here in the streets.
Okay.
When you hear a melody, you got to kind of send yourself a little voice memo. When you get a memo, or when you get a sample idea, I'm going to sample that. You got to leave your voice memo. Which is funny, you're trying to act like you're Jay-Z is what you're doing. Because Jay-Z used to do it. He's out in the street hustling.
Everybody, right.
He would write little lyrics on paper bags.
Because you forget stuff, yeah.
But then he was like, screw the paper bags, I'm out in these streets. And that's where he started memorizing his rhymes. But so we're all worried because this is the last season for Inside the NBA, and NBA being on TNT, as we know, the NBA is going to be going a couple of different places now. So everybody was sad because this is what we depend on. This is what we have. This is what we love. Ernie, Shaq, Chuck, Kenny, the whole nine. So they found
Shaq doesn't have a contract. We hear now.
Well, yeah, that's the snag in this whole thing. You let me, but they're gonna figure. You don't. All right, let me say this: if one was to go between the four, I had to sacrifice one, like it was the Hunger Games or something. Shaq would be the one I could live without. I don't want to lose Shaq, but if I had to, he's the one I could live without. Which is crazy. I'm sure some people would say Kenny because he's, less.
Nah, you need Kenny.
Kenny brings me great analysis, great insight.
He's watching the game.
He's watching the game.
He's watching the games. I mean,
and Chuck ain't going nowhere. And Ernie is the maestro. He ain't going nowhere. If I had to, meaning that, look, everything can't go right. We can't keep everything. Shaq wants a bunch of money, or he wants to go be DJ Diesel, or whatever it is.
And or ESPN wants one of their people on.
One of their people on.
Like, that's the other thing, too. I know they say, they're just going to, doesn't matter what the content, and they'll just leave it as is. They say that.
They're going to squeeze in because they're going to have to look for the future. Chuck has already said, Charles Barkley, he ain't going to be here forever. Right? Ernie Johnson, isn't going to be here forever. So they're going to squeeze in if it's Wilbon, if it's your boy, which probably they would do. You might have some inside track. What you know?
I don't know anything.
Don't look. You ain't even look me in my eye.
I don't know anything.
Why you ain't looking me in my eye?
I don't.
Alex ain't over there. Why you looking at him? Looking at
All right, and 877-99 on Fox, start lining up for Trash Talk.
So I just think it's fun. I think we all win. The basketball world wins. I mean, this is one of those things that's pop culture, for the games, yes, but also the shenanigans.
Will it feel the same? I don't know. I don't know why.
I wonder if they will bring the same song. Like, will they try to literally bring the show on a different network?
Supposedly, it's going to be produced by TNT and sold to ESPN. Like, this was how they were able to save face over losing the NBA.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, because they had the suit, the NBA, they weren't going to go to court because they weren't going to win. So they had to kind of come up with something to make them feel like, well, we got something out of it.
They have to bring what makes that show great, yes, the personalities, but is the empowerment of all the other people. The people who, and if you watch, by the way, anybody who wants to be in this business, if you're listening right now, if you're a college kid or just out of college, go watch the Inside. I think it's called The Inside Story of the Inside the NBA. I think is what it's called. It's a 4-part documentary.
I was in that.
I think you were. Yeah. That thing is great.
Yeah. We talked that. Yeah, I was very happy that they asked me to be a part of that. Great. Yeah, because there's a whole thing, and obviously it didn't start with them. You know what I mean? But the way that whole show developed and became a staple for basketball fans.
It's how they also empower everybody. Like, hey, if you're the guy. It's like Alex. It isn't just like, hey, Alex, only do what we say. It's like if Alex got a hilarious drop or this, or it's like empowering people to be creative and be a part of the show. And that's one of the things that makes that special. I say that because, to your point, if it was just going to be the ESPN crew doing everything, like, no. I need the people who are drawing the stuff on Charles Barkley's head, adding to this. I need to Put it on a T-shirt. I need all of that.
But that's what it is. It's supposed to be like an independent. It's like the deal that they have with the kicker on ESPN.
The kicker?
I'd never watch his show. The Colts kicker.
Oh, McAfee. Yeah, the kicker. I'm over here like, who are you talking about?
But McAfee.
Why he can't be a TV personality?
No,
he can't be a podcaster.
No, he can.
The kicker.
He can do whatever he wants. I just don't watch his show. And I'm not being funny. I'm just being honest.
Yeah, no, he had his own thing.
He had his own thing, and so he doesn't technically work for ESPN.
That's why he can say some wild stuff or do some stuff. This is what I'm trying to say. Calling out the bosses. I'd be like, dang, taking shots.
I mean, he doesn't work. He doesn't work for ESPN. Like they buy his content, and that's what this is going to be. Supposedly, it'll be TNT's production of it, all that just happens to air on ESPN, and they pay a certain amount of money for it.
Well, we win. Basketball fans win. We love listening to them, watching them. They might not even talk about the game. Just them being them is great. It's one of the top 10 shows of all time. And I don't mean sports shows. I'm talking shows, in my opinion. It's that great to me. Fox Sports Radio Weekends. Ephraim, real quick, Rob, I want to ask you real quick your thoughts. You're an NBA guy. You love hoops. You can compare it to
basketball at a high level.
Yeah. Compare it to NFL, doesn't matter, locker room or when you playing some hoops as well. Your star, Joel Embiid, that caliber, Tyrese Maxey, your second, star at least, he has to call him out about being late. And not just late for a day, like, he missed that meeting or late. He said, reports from Shams are that they said he's late for everything. And he's always injured. And he doesn't play. And he doesn't play back-to-backs. And it's not like he comes with ring equity. How do you feel if that happens in a locker room?
Yeah, it's unacceptable, man. I used to be the guy in the locker room the coaches felt comfortable with when they had younger guys who couldn't quite understand how to be pros. So I would pull them aside and because after a while, younger players, start blocking coaches out, right? So you need your veteran leadership in the locker room to do that heavy lifting. But when it's coming from your supposed leader, the league MVP, the guy you're supposed to be following to the mountaintop, when that's not right, then nothing's going to be right. So you just look over the past years and how unsuccessful the Philadelphia 76ers have been when it comes to the playoffs and moving forward to the championship. You now understand why they haven't been able to be successful, because they're being led by someone in the back. I tell my kids that I coach now, I said, no one follows a leader who's behind them. So when we're running sprints and we're warming up, or when we're conditioning, if you think you're the leader of the team and you're in the back, then no one is following you, right? So if you're late for meetings, if you're late for whatever it is, and you're not professional, then the team that you're leading is going to falter. It's going to fail. Flat out.
And the other thing, too, Ephraim, last year, if you remember, in the postseason, you remember the Philly fans sold their tickets to Knicks fans last year?
Yeah, that was crazy.
That to me was an indictment. I remember thinking, wow, they really have no faith in Joel Embiid and that team to give up their tickets to the rival Knicks fans so that they could pack the arena.
They did, too.
And they did. They made themselves heard loud and clear.
Yeah, it's just a bad look. It's characteristic of what was going on with the Clippers. When things had come out that guys were late, like Kawhi, Paul, they would call off practice, be late to the team playing, all that, and you wonder, man, they got all the talent. How come they can't be successful? These are some of the things that we're now starting to be privy to that answers those questions. This is why teams that are buttoned up and led by real leaders who work harder than anyone else on the team, those are the teams that usually stand on top of the mountaintop at the end of the season.
Hey, let's get to the Dallas Cowboys because they're just awful. My goodness gracious. Ephraim, before this, they had won like 16 straight home games before that Packers playoff blowout, right? They had won, and now they can't stop anybody. This thing looks like, what has gone wrong here? Because I know they had changed the defensive coordinator, but I'm shocked at how bad they are.
Well, leadership matters. And this is a great segue into football and leadership. When the leader of the Dallas Cowboys is Jerry Jones. Jerry Jones is obviously out of touch with actually what it takes to build a successful franchise, starting from coaching down to personnel decisions. I mean, he has complete carte blanche on every decision that's made there, and he's out of touch with it, right? Like, he's in a situation where they did absolutely nothing to get themselves better, even though they got shellacked in the playoffs last year at home.
Except bringing Ezekiel Elliott because he was only cost him $1.50.
They did nothing. They did nothing to improve a roster that wasn't very good, and they got exposed when they played against playoff caliber teams last year, including the playoffs with Green Bay, just beating the brakes off of them. So it's one of those situations where you didn't want to go get Derrick Henry, even though you knew your running game was in the toilet. And now you're sitting up here and you're looking. You want to pay Dak $60 million a year. CeeDee Lamb is making $30+ a year. None of it matters because your roster isn't where it needs to be, and it starts with leadership. They're just a bad football team, and standing pat and not doing anything to get you better in the offseason gets you in this position right now.
He is Ephraim Salaam, former NFL offensive lineman, Fox Sports Radio Weekends. Ephraim Salaam on Twitter. I go to a team, I look at the Chargers, and nobody really talks about them, yet we're sitting here, they're 7-3, coming off a big win, especially that was the type of game, Ephraim, that against the Bengals, that they've lost historically. The Chargers lose that game. But here comes Jim Harbaugh and changing the culture, at least as of now, and they win these types of games that they normally have lost. What is he doing? And what do you like about Justin Herbert, who's having a very good season quietly?
Look, man, I'm so glad. This is perfect. You guys are hitting on all cylinders.
That's what we do.
Every single one of these answers to the questions you're asking starts with the top. Jim Harbaugh came in and changed the culture in a matter of months, right? Under Brandon Staley, they were the worst decision-making team in the world. Yeah, you had Justin Herbert who could make every throw, throwing for 300, 400 yards a game. It didn't matter because when it came down to making decisions that would have an outcome in whether you won or lost, they were making poor decisions, and they had been for the last 4 years under Staley. They get someone in like Jim Harbaugh who automatically commands respect, and it's a completely different team. They have less weapons this year offensively than they had last year with Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Austin Eckler, and they're a better balanced team. The defense is playing lights out. They got guys on the outside on offense no one had ever heard of. But it starts with the leadership. It starts with Harbaugh coming in, settling the ship down, not dumping all of this on the shoulders of Justin Herbert. And they love winning games where he passed the ball for 24 times. They don't want him throwing the ball 40, 50 times a game. That's not the formula that Harbaugh has ever used. Now, if you find yourself in a shootout, Jim knows that he has the quarterback that can pass with the best of them. And so just having that luxury and not depending on that, right? Like it's unbelievable. But that's a brilliant football mind.
Let me ask you this, though. This is what bothers me about the Chargers, and we'll get into it. Their 3 losses are all against the teams over 500, and 5 of their 7 wins, I got to look at the other 2 records, they beat up a lot of bad teams. But they lost to Pittsburgh, they lost to Kansas City, and they lost to Arizona. All teams with, good teams with winning records. Does that bother you at all?
No, it doesn't, because they weren't blown out. They weren't embarrassed. I mean, look, you're not going to win all your games. Obviously, Kansas City just showed us that. When you play against good teams, you want to be able to line up and compete. You don't want to be able to go up against a team.
But you want to beat some of them, don't you? I mean, I agree with that.
You are. I mean, they have, what are they,
7-3. 7-3.
7-3. 7-3. Yeah. Look, man, they've lost three games to potential playoff teams. It's going to be hard. You're not going to win them all. What if they don't lose any more? What if they lose one more? Right?
No, I'm just, but if you start looking at it, I'm just saying, Ephraim, they got Baltimore next. They play the Falcons, Kansas City again, and if you start looking and they lose those games to Baltimore and Kansas City and Denver, maybe, do you start to look and say, well, they're not beating anybody? Is what I'm saying.
Really, And the reason I say that is because when you talk about a Kansas City, we're talking about we think is the best team out there. One of the
I
best
don't think they're
there.
that good. I think they should be 5-5.
Well, they're not, but okay. Records say a lot. When you talk about Baltimore, also one of the top teams outside of them playing the Steelers, but Arizona, they have an opportunity to win their division. You're talking about all teams that are good teams, right? So if the Chargers get down to it and they lose to the Chiefs by 3 points, are we going to be like, oh, the Chargers are terrible? No, we're not. But they have a good opportunity to win that game. Like you said, the Chiefs aren't playing Chief-like football, even though it's been like that the last 2 years with their offense sputtering. But, what we saw this past weekend was their defense couldn't really stop anybody with going against Buffalo. So the Chargers, I think the Chargers have an opportunity and a chance to compete and win each of those games that you mentioned, plus the rest on their schedule because of the leadership of Harbaugh.
Yeah, it's been that defense too. Their defense has gotten very, very good. They're kind of scary.
One of the top defenses in the league.
They're scary right now.
And I know we don't have time, but I've talked about Patrick Mahomes, and he started the game with an interception, ended it with an interception. All of his net records, all his stats, all the stats are the lowest of his career, Ephraim. All of them.
And he's somehow 9-1. That's the craziest part, and that's
the scary part.
Yeah.
All right,
Ephraim, we appreciate you, bro. As always, thank you so much.